joined Puppeteers of America in 46 when McFarlane was still doing yearbooks. And I read all these names. And I wanted passionately to go to a puppet festival, but I was too young to travel. On my own, I didn't have the money, so when the first festival was held on the West Coast at UCLA, I went down with a group of people from our Bay Area Puppeteers Guild. And it was magical. All my heroes were there, the Roses, the Proctors, the Mertens. George Merton was president of P of A. Elizabeth Merton did the most exciting puppet show I'd ever seen. I just was thrilled to pieces.
I taught in the Kissimmee Public Schools by means of puppet. And now I'm writing shadow puppet plays for schools and having them published. And I brought some of them to a show here. I'm Kit Dawson, and I come from Kissimmee, Florida.
And you came by air?
All by myself.
You're welcome.
It took all day.
First one I attended was after the first year I toured for Martin Stevens, and he took me to a festival in Oklahoma City. And in those days, they were held in hotels where you had to rent the rooms and space with platform theaters and not real stages and so forth. And then we had a man who was head of the theater department in Oxford, Ohio at Western College for Women, who invited us on campus. And then the organization began to see the obvious benefits of being in a educational theater setting, of places that were, let's say, enlightened enough to withstand the assault of all these crazy people.
My name is Kathleen Chalfant. This is my husband, Richard Tabor.
Hello.
This is my son, Patrick Tabor. Hello. And this is my daughter, Madeline Tabor.
Hi.
And my kids really help me out a lot during my shows. Patrick is wonderful at voices. We do the shows in libraries and in schools, at children's hospitals. And that's basically it for now. I'll probably be working for a mental health center in the fall, working with ambulatory schizophrenics. My background is working with cancer patients in Maryland, and Jim Henson was ahead of me at the University of Maryland, but he would come back with his wife and talk about how he developed the Muppets. And I, of course, was far too serious then to ever consider puppetry. However, I always thought it might be fun to do sometime in the future. So here I am, doing puppetry.
So, I'm a computer person, so I do technical stuff in terms of creating tapes for the shows that we do and building stages and helping to build some props and stuff. So.
Good digs. The Carters must have scoped it out.
Yep.
Well, they did say that.
I went to my first one in 1970, University of Connecticut. Carol Spinney, who is Big Bird on Sesame Street, was the director of that festival. And it was very exciting. I guess your first festival is always the most exciting one, no matter when it is or where it is. It's total immersion in puppetry. You discover this. That's also what we are. We're sort of an extended family. We become that for a lot of... puppeteering is a very unusual interest. And so all of a sudden you discover all of these people who share this unusual interest. You don't feel quite so isolated anymore.
Now this show is just like at the opera. After the overture, you clap. Are you ready?
Yes.
Are you set?
Yes.
Here we go. After the overture.
And I think for a lot of us, we're coming to see, to get inspired. And
And whether or not that happens, I don't know. I think it really has to be with the person that shows up. You can either come and criticize and say, "Oh, it was garbage," and why do you think they picked me to play this festival? And drag your sorry puppet show up there. Or you can really go with it and try to get as much as you can out of other people's shows. Something from everybody.
I'm from Japan. My name is Atsuko Yoshinaga. I'm looking for anyone speak Japanese, but I cannot look.
I will help you. Look.
Thank you.
All throwed on to 1x2. And everything on this is held in with these sort of thumb screws things. Do you know about these? You sort of countersink the other part in here so that you don't have to worry about a wing nut or anything else like that to lose. This part also comes off because I don't use I don't have a lot of props for the George and the Dragon show. All of those puppets, thank you. Just hang on these cuff hooks around the front here.
Go for the lemonade, go for the orange drinks, and try to get a steady flow of water going in.
You kind of bring
Doing the kind of walking that's going to be required of you.
your own world to it, and you hopefully encounter other people's worlds, and hopefully make good connections with people. And who knows? Who knows why they come? I think maybe we're lonely. We need friends.
With a single blast of the boat's whistle, your adventure begins.
Yeah, and I was just saying that it's wonderful to start the whole festival with a big party, and everybody's excited about seeing this new place.
I got some places you can only play for some years.
Yes, I agree. Wholeheartedly. I'm fully in accord with whatever she says.
Yeah.
As visitors pass quickly through the buffet lines, they are able to watch the fresh salmon being prepared. After you dine in the Longhouse, Dance on the Wind, a spellbinding pageant produced by world-famous Greg Thompson Productions, unfolds on stage. The songs and dances come from tribes which inhabited a narrow coastal region stretching from northern Oregon into southern Alaska. Most represent highly valued personal honors and are owned by a specific individual who is the only person with the right to authorize its performance.
So that when the nose goes down,
that just supports it.
The eyebrows drop and the lip is pulled up. When the nose goes up, the eyebrows are pushed up and the lip falls down by gravity. And if it's done slowly, it sometimes won't go.
Right.
Wow. Besides, the Dunaquaw was a Dunaquaw baby. So he thought, here's my chance. So he crept up and began to pinch the baby. And the baby began to cry. And she said, in the Dunaquaw way, "Oh, there's the matter with my baby. She's crying all the time. Cry, cry, pinch, pinch, cry, cry." She kept this up a while. Finally, this man spoke up. He said, "I'm an Indian doctor, Pakala. I can cure your baby." So he quit pinching the baby, so he quit crying.
And Van Shiver book. It's just a sweet book to look at, and it's got a lot of the standard sort of fairy tales, but she keeps it really simple and sweet.
Margaret, what's that title?
Oh, Storytelling Made Easy with Puppets.
It's a form for the young ones and for handicapped and also for the elderly. And I find that all those groups they go for something like this.
Yeah.
Japanese toy called, how do you say it?
Byun Byun Goma. Byun Byun Goma.
It's also the back door of the festival.
Oh, here we go. After the cheese! Is it this cheek ran away out the gate? Being squished on a pillow would not be its fate. It went looking for beauty, adventure, fresh air. Isido's cheek was still bare. As he went out on the back of old Dobbin, his heart it was racing, his brain it was throbbing. He felt all and
well, now, I know you are hiding in there. Come out. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't want to disturb you. I just want my little cheek. Beep, beep, beep. Oh, I just want my little cheek. Beep, beep. I'm all alone in that big old city. What? Huh? What? A puppet show? I love puppet shows. Alas, it fell into the deep, deep garden well. Oh, who can help me retrieve my friend? He shall marry me in the end. Ribbit. Oh, yuck, a frog. His eyes pierce the darkness. He longed for the sight of his cheek as he whirled in a descending motion. Motion. I have to run around with only one cheek all my life long. Go away. Go away, whoever you are. I'm crying for my little red cheek. Oh, you are my little red cheek. You have come back to me all on your own. Oh, that makes me so happy. That makes me so happy. My little red cheek has come back to me. Oh, I'm so happy. I hope it comes back in the right place. My cheek's back. Night on night. Close your eyes. Close your gate.
David's big thing, and my parents live here.
Now you won't even walk backwards for a minute.
Yeah, you want to walk backwards? We'll just keep on talking to him. What you meant?
I'm going to knock into a wall.
Around the world, be it resolved that the board of Unima USA proclaims George Latshaw Honorary Dean of American Puppetry.
Yeah, no, this would have been a very surprising thing to me as a kid. That it would ever end up with such a designation, because all I wanted to do was play with marionettes when I was 8 years old, because it was theater in miniature. And also I later discovered it probably was because it was a world that I could control. There's no talking back. When they said, "Aren't you going to stay here out in California?" And I said, "No, I'm going home to Ohio."
In the morning. Yes, it's I signed it.
But I'd grown up seeing vaudeville, so people who did things over and over and over again got better and better and better, and that was the path I wanted to follow. And the excitement is that you recognize that your kinship with all your fellow puppeteers. I think that, we talk about being a family, and certainly there is that warm feeling of affection and regard and the generosity of puppeteers. It's not like it was in the olden times, let's say, where puppetry was really a secret art, and people didn't want to give out their secrets. If they toured, they sometimes, particularly the foreign companies, would mask the back of their stages so not even the stagehands in the theater could see what they were doing or how it was done. I like playing for live audiences because I figure that we're like a sports club. They are on one side and I am on the other, and we play a game together. And it takes both of us to make it happen.
Okay, in my theater class, I made some Cyrano de Bergerac puppets, and they're pretty big, and I did a lot with those things, and I built them with my friends. Cyrano de Bergerac and Roxanne is the girl, and then Cyrano de Bergerac is the hero, and I have some animal puppets from different places, and I do some birthday parties, and I'm active in my church, and so I can use my puppetry stuff at my church. Some ministry over
in an inner city neighborhood.
Inner city neighborhood, yeah.
They do some puppet shows.
Well,
yeah.
I bring a couple of people, and sometimes I do a one-man show, and I just put on some puppets really quick, and just do a show.
Are you ready to go back?
China public school for 6 years. After school, I stay in the school, be a teacher for 2 years. Now I come to U.S. After that, I perform sometime with my dad, or sometimes perform by myself, or with the cutters. Yeah, I travel with my dad to the show, and I want to spend 2 times. One time in Italy, I do the show with my dad in some different city in the U.S. No. Everything will be fine. We always find out something to fix it. So never need to worry about making mistakes. Sometimes I make mistakes better. People think, oh, that's wonderful. Sometimes change some idea.
I don't believe it. There you go. Now she go fly. Is that boing or boing? Sorry.
These were taken when I was in Indonesia. And the reason I was there was on invitation from Jesuit missionaries out there, and they would run their own communication center. And then by the time I arrived, they would have people lined up to participate in the workshops that I would be running, and then I was also able to perform for the different groups, school children, so forth. I've also been to Nigeria, and again, same way, by invitation with the men from the running communication centers. So it's been wonderful that way, to get around the world, and it has, for some of these people in much third world countries, one day is like any other. So just doing a little puppet show is like, Broadway coming into a little town. So.
You know what you might want to do is make string this through the wood, through the bottom, and then attach it to the toe. Well, not to the toe, back in this area.
Look at all the heads, all the bodies with no heads. Oh, here. I'm Mother Goose, and I've got a goose that I work with, and I'm Squeaky the Clown, and I've worked with stuff like this for 47 years, but I decided to do marionettes. And I've always used hand puppets. And when I saw Jim, I decided to change over. So.
This is a work in progress, and I brought it with me to help absorb some new ideas and workshop it a little bit. It's a combination of puppet à clavier with the puppet of the keys, an inverse marionette that pulls the strings. Automata from the Cabaret Mechanical Movement book. I got ideas. That's to move the legs, and also more basic rod puppet movement that you can get.
I'm not even registered. I'm just here to watch, actually, because I respect him so much. Yes? Tomorrow, if you're free. Well, actually, funny you should mention that. I saw him walking the other way on my way here. I think he's a little confused.
No, but I had binoculars. Another big pair of binoculars.
Were the fingers moving when he was playing the stringed instrument?
Oh, yes, they were.
I thought so.
They were
I was in the fourth row, so I could see. That was amazing.
Very good.
It's a pocket, and then wide sleeves here, and the thumb fits up in the sleeve. It's very easy to pop off and spin your hand around and so forth. They don't really slip in; they just go. Well, they're in here, but it's so wide that it's not. It's just open, and your hand just automatically goes up in there.
Not sexy. It's okay. Not sexy puppet. Okay. Okay, everybody see. Okay, see the puppet? Yes. Now this wrong. This is wrong. Yeah.
Once upon a time, there stood a tall, beautiful castle. And in the castle, there lived a king. And the king, more than anything else, loved to ride his horsey. Charge, millions! I love to ride my horsey.
Who are you? I'm Magic Frog. I don't care for the Little Mermaid. Get out of my bathtub.
And I bring you good news.
What kind of news?
You're gonna have a baby.
How do you know?
I'm Magic Frog.
Oh.
And when I'm gone, you won't remember I was gone.
I won't.
No, we are standing here being stupid.
No, you're not.
Yes, we are very stupid. surprise chocolate picket pie for her birthday.
A surprise chocolate picket pie for my birthday? Oh, wonderful. I'm going to tell everybody.
Oh la la, my little friend in the poofy hat. You've left the dag on pussycat. No more chattering. Throw out the pastry. Oh la la. The little turtle jumped the other window.
Why don't you touch it?
Touch it?
Yeah, go on, touch it, touch it, touch it, touch it, touch it.
Okay, I'm curious how things feel. I wonder. Oh, I've cut myself.
Why are you laughing? Oh, you're not the kind of granny, but an evil fairy. Oh, I'm fainting. Oh,
Now she's dead.
no, the little fairy meddled with my magic. Oh, she's sleeping.
Why, look. There's something glittering beneath the greenery there. Maybe it's water, and I'm awfully thirsty.
No, it's not water. It's a dragon.
Are you afraid of dragon?
No, not that's a dragon.
Oh, please, let's go riding horsey.
Champions!
And they all lived happily ever after.
We ought to get pieces of it and sell it to the...
Ooh, that smells good.
Incredible.
Ooh.
That's a big
All the puppeteers want wood.
About everything that's going on here. Does something not seem a little fishy to you? No. At the time that we walked and suddenly you saw... Careful, what happened?
Gertrude and Bertha are actually were made as two sisters, which one actually rules the other, and the other is more submitting to it, more submitting to Gertrude. Bertha is more submissive, but actually in a way she moves her and she controls her movements, because Gertrude is really relying upon her admiration to what she does. So she looks in Bertha her admiration. And actually we developed these characters later on in different things that we did. So now we know things about them which don't show up in this performance, so we don't want to talk about things that, you know, came out later. Actually, we did not expect her to take parts of my body, it just happened. One day I was sitting with her, she was sitting on my lap, and I was with shorts. And suddenly we saw that she was matching my legs in a very interesting way. And I thought that it was, I don't know, I was a bit surprised because I did not expect it to happen. Gertrude was evidently very happy with it. And she started making remarks. So Vital said it looked very well, and we decided to make an act out of that, actually.
I mean, when she's dressed, it raises many questions that we don't want to answer. Like, where is she sitting? It's like opening, the words outside the stage.
One moment, I didn't make it. The music was too short. Once again, the same piece, please. It's not fair, it was much too short.
I was trained as a dancer, and actually my theater work began as I went to learn directing of theater in order to create dance theater. And then I encountered puppetry, and I thought it was a very good junction between choreography, stories, which I like very much, and and directing and doing design work, because puppet theater is actually design in motion, and I love the way that you can create a whole world without having to be taken for granted, like people have to be taken for granted, because with puppet you can't even rely on the fact that it's alive.
我今天来想过一样，不过可能很好，但是
I gotta help pack up everything, so I will be a little bit later.
Oh yeah.
It's just fun phone.
I think she
You don't think that would be too bad?
No, that would be fine. But you know what? She works just fine without a nose.
Without a nose? Maybe I'll ask his opinion on it. There. I tried to pick something really bland. I didn't really want the nose to stand out.
Right. I would. I pin it on first and
See
try
if I
it
like it before I glue it.
She works just well without a nose.
Maybe I should just learn how to make a nose.
Get this part of your arm to do the story. Popping. If they're polite, they might cover their mouth, of course. Your puppet fills up with breath when you do that. Try the surprise. Have your puppet looking away from you, turn around and see you and be shocked.
Life of the Puppet, I thought was a really good name for it because although we worked on manipulation, technically, what we were really focused on is getting in touch with the impulse of the puppet.
For me, like the best point in the high point of the workshop was when there were three of us on one of Eric's puppets, and he came over and he got on the head, and then he put his hand underneath my hand, which was on the pelvis of the puppet, and I got to actually feel the breath. It was this wonderful moment where I got this kinesthetic experience of what it is to sort of be the puppet.
Right, and we just worked with the hand,
Yeah.
placing the heart in the palm and the sensory, the eyes and the fingers. And so again, working with metaphor to really experience how a puppet can describe the world and how the world gets inside the puppet, just even without just looking at your own hand.
This is an adaptation of a book by Michel de Geldrode, and it is presented by Tom.
I'd been given the truck by a friend of mine. I was a tax write-off for him, and I was traveling in New Mexico and visited the Folk Art Museum in Santa Fe, and they have a big exhibit of toy theaters. They're a wonderful exhibit. And so I just had this epiphany. I put the theaters in the truck.
Go, Columbus, go find your new world. We reign over this pitiful and neurotic kingdom. It isn't fair. It isn't fair.
And I would play Columbus, but then there were other characters, and I'd never done puppets before, but I realized that I'd have to create some image to be the other characters, and that's how I came to do puppetry.
Why, I think I'll just hold his hand like this. Why, I do believe we were meant to afford each other. Harlequin boy, you! Oh, but tell me, what are your intentions? Have you come to cut our throats? We are celebrating. You are the agents of our destiny. But I had a presentiment that you were contemptuous of our civilization. We despise your civilization. But the Order Colossal reveals that in your ships there will be whiskey. We need whiskey. It will improve the quality of our despair.
I've had people come up to me and thank me for doing this. And I think that you're going to get that kind of reaction whenever you do something that's out there, that's on the edge. You're going to get people who appreciate that and don't see it and maybe have a feeling inside themselves that they'd like to do something like that. And so I've gotten just wonderful responses. And then I've also gotten a few people who won't look at me now at the festival. But and then I have, of course, the range in between. But it's been a positive experience for me. And I haven't performed it in 2 years, so it's nice to bring it out and do it again.
I am returned. Columbus, whom the world forgets, the poet remembers you. Chris, you must tell me, what is it really like? Why, I saw poets there. I knew it! We must communicate! No, these poets, they write nothing.
Came here to perform with this mouse.
This year he's 72 years old. 他从13岁学习表演，到现在呢，已经差不多有60年的历史了。He began studying when he was 13, so he already has nearly 60 years of experience. And it moves not only up and down, but also a little bit. He says to make a puppet able to walk very nicely, it's very important to have lots of joints to make it more realistic. Look for a place to sit down and. Next is Zhong Hui gets drunk. And Zhong Hui, he was a really well-educated fellow. So with his education, he went to try to get a job in the government. But the emperor thought he was too ugly, so he wouldn't give him a job. Zhong Hui was so upset that he killed himself. After that, he got appointed a job. He was appointed to go round up all the ghosts roaming around the world. It was a pretty stressful job, so he ended up drinking a lot. That he's moving. It's the front two ones for the finger and the one in the middle of his hand. The other two strings are just to keep his arm up, one at the wrist and one at the elbow. And so one pulls the string to close and one is at the tip of the fingers. Down into the shoulder and up. It makes him turn with the more force, more energy. Tricky little monkey. And this monkey, Mr. Huang trained himself.
Velma, I'd like you to meet Sue Eaton and Martin Bridle. They're from England. They're going to be doing the Punch and Judy shows on Friday and a show tomorrow.
I'm so pleased to meet you.
Velma Dawson, she designed and built Howdy Doody that you may know from TV fame.
Howdy Doody is very American.
Oh, it's lovely to meet you.
And this is Renee.
Oh, Renee. Hello, Renee.
All right. Wow. He does variety marionettes, and he's wonderful. Wonderful man.
Nice meeting you, Renee.
Pleasure again. All right.
And he also tells us that the Chinese show is fantastic and we shouldn't miss it.
Out of this world. You're going to drop.
And Velma says it's better than you.
Yes, it is.
And are you paying her?
No.
Well, I asked her quietly because I didn't want to just.
That bothered me a bit. The man's a genius. I mean, he can have his controls the way he has them.
The controls are the most beautiful things I have ever seen.
They're so simple, but 50 million strings.
Yeah.
And he does the same needle gag that we've all done with the stripper type thing. Well, I'm not going to tell you any more than that. I don't want to ruin it. They haven't seen it.
Have a little hat, don't you? Yeah, a lot of joking.
Yes, because you'll want it flush in there because people will read from the bottom and the side. And nobody's going to be on the top of it. You know, I mean, no, that's good.
That's good.
Yeah. Don't you think that helps? I mean,
yeah,
it
does tremendously. That was
yeah.
one of our strategic problems.
Well, it's because I make masks all the time, and we always go through this. How do you make, you know, animal things? You have to always get this thing out there.
Does everybody see? Can you see his nose? No. The nose grows. This is an Indonesian Pinocchio. Okay, you see that? Okay, look at the difference here. And maybe I should have gone into this more in my discussion. This is a surface paint. Okay, this is an application that's actually put on top of the puppet, and so you have to paint it on both sides. In India, they actually, that's correct. These are not translucent. In India, these puppets are actually dyed. I mean, it's similar to a batik. You know, just like the fabric absorbs, goat skin will absorb the dye. It's put on as a surface, but it's watery, and it soaks into. So really, what's giving it the color is not a surface application of a paint. It's actually the pigment that's going into the leather.
We had workshops at the festival, which the idea was over a 3-day period for the students involved to actually make production themselves, starting from storyboard through to writing scripts, designing figures and scenery, and ending up with an actual performance at the end of the session. And the results are very interesting. There were actual 5 shows in a ready state to perform, and about another 6 or 7 which were getting close.
Give me a boat that'll
Look, we even got the little boat moving. Accidentally, but...
Yeah. And we'll show my love and I.
Good job for the clear.
And the interesting thing was, most of the people did all their performances live and actually sang, which I admire that because most of my work I use recorded soundtracks when I do my shows. And most of the work I do, the performances I make, are often for museums, both in Britain and in Germany, often connected with a museum exhibition or some special theme, and the subject matter can be anything really. We do things on art history, Egyptian history, history of seaside entertainment, and the possibilities are endless.
It's presented as if it's a genuine reenactment of an old traditional show in England, and I presented it with a spoof history to suggest that this was a show I'd discovered myself through research and that I'd revived, and that it was a secretive ritual in the villages of Dorset where I used to live. But in fact, it's a complete invention of mine and Sue's, based on the idea of the kind of show we think must have existed, but for which there's no actual written evidence.
Time has now begun. Arise, the shining golden.
the foliate face. It's a face made of leaves, and nobody knows quite what it's about. But books have been written about it, but there's very little written evidence. So the main theory is that it is a symbol of the spirit of vegetation. And in the last scene, in winter, the pig is ludicrously fat, and that's quite a joke in itself. It's led away, and wintertime, who is also death, implies that the pig is going to be ritually slaughtered. This is done off stage, and then the final joke, the joke of piggery jokery, is that the pig is turned into sausages. It's hard from my point of view, being inside that thing, to really get an idea of what's happening out there. But I guess we must be creating some kind of atmosphere which is greater than the sum of its parts. That's my feeling, and I think Sue's playing, and the fact that we enter mysteriously from nowhere and then disappear is quite different to the usual walkabout booth, and especially an American style presentation where the performer will leap out with a big smile on his face and take the applause. It's much more mysterious than that.
I've had no casualties. They're doing wonderful. They're doing what they were told to do. Some deep bananas to keep the potassium in the legs, and they're all coming back going, hey, their legs feel great. And, you know, it's a hilly contract. And people have just been saying that...
La première récolte du coton doit servir à habiller la cour royale.
WKUL, way cool here from the university campus. And I just want to tell you about what's going on here. There's this gathering of people. They're already into their 4th day of non-stop puppetry. 4 days, man. 4 days. You people have got to be the strongest people I've ever met.
Parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. Mix what I call flower child number 9.
I've always been interested in art, and at one point I decided that I either wasn't good enough to do graphic art, painting, drawing, do things, put on walls, and then when I got a book from the library on puppetry, I experimented with puppets, different kinds of puppets, and then I did shadow, and that was perfect for me because I'm more of a two-dimensional artist. I majored in printmaking in college, and when you make a print, you make your plate and then you run it through the press, it comes out different. It's backwards and, you know, textures and things. And for me, shadow's kind of like that. I can't really see what the audience is seeing. I've always liked the story of Thumbelina. When I was little, I was touched by the relationship, the Thumbelina comes across this bird who she thinks is dead, and then she nurses it to life, and it just touched me. And then also all the different nature themes I thought would be beautiful in shadow.
Oh, Thumbelina, I found you. Oh, Rainbow. All right. Are you ready, friend? I'm ready, Rainbow. All right, let's fly. Whee! Higher, Rainbow. All right, I want to take you higher.
That's how we liked our shows to be, to appeal to a wide range of an audience. And of course, the young children really like the bugs in the show.
We are the bugs. We are the insects. We are the ones who'll be around when the people are all gone.
I've always dreamt about having wings.
You were meant for wings, Thumbelina.
Oh, I can fly all by myself. Thank you, Peace Blossom.
You're welcome, Thumbelina, and welcome home.
I'm home.
Thumbelina, man, she lived happily ever after. I know this because, like a little bird, flew up to my window and told me this story.
Beauty. Kimberly. Come on, brilliance. Let's go check into a motel.
We had artistic differences about that. Mark wanted me on top immediately, and I said, I'm self-conscious a little bit about my weight. It's coming down, but it's not down far enough yet. And he said, it'll be much funnier if you play the top. And I said, I know it will, but I really don't rather be the legs. And I sort of agreed with him reluctantly that it would be funnier if we played it that way. So we knew we wanted to form Gertrude. As reading the description of Gertrude, it talked about how they formed Gertrude, and we looked at each other and said, let's also form Gertrude, and we just thought that would be a neat thing to do.
I saw it when it was, I would say it was about from 12 feet, and then I thought they were going to leave it at 12 feet, and then I came and you're right, it was cut down, and that's when I heard they were making a totem pole out of the wood.
Where'd you hear that from?
One of the people from right here who was standing here, who was here, she's like maybe from the art department, she was taking part of the bark, symbolically of the cedar tree that the bark had been split off. And she wanted some memory of that.
Okay, well, join the.
I'm waiting for my stilts to make it.
Join the festivities.
Absolutely. I had a lot of attending, not much of it.
Well, we went over to the class and we wanted to go to it, but it was 3 days in a row, 3 sessions, and we just felt we had other things that we needed to do, but they said they were going to need people to carry puppets, so here we are. So it's fun. But I would like to take it a class in this. I think it would have been fun. Maybe if they had a one-day class with a lot of pieces cut out just to get you the feeling of understanding it. We did a great class this morning with Drew Allison where he put together a foam puppet from soup to nuts, from having just materials to doing the whole thing. It was great.
Yeah.
I might. I gotta turn. Watch yourself.
It's a copy of a 1600 Fettuccine stage, and it's hand puppets on the top and marionettes on the bottom. I went over to England and studied under Mr. Glenn Edwards, who is one of the masters over there.
Ichiban hajime wa ichinomiya.
I mean, it's kind of like the fun of these festivals. It's kind of a random event, sort of like chaos theory. You never know who it is. And you'll be sitting there with some guy and you'll think, oh, who is this? And then you'll find out it's like, the greatest punch man in the entire universe or something, And you can't assume, because we're all behind the puppet, we're like not out front, so you never know what this genius is that you're sitting next to, because you can't tell without their puppets on who they are.
I want you to look after the baby. You want me to look after the baby? That's what I want you to do. Well, that's just... Wait a minute. Say something. What do you want me to say? Excuse me a second here. Could you get the voices straight here, would you?
Amazingly inspiring to me as a puppeteer, and I think to anybody as a human being. So if you have an opportunity to come to a puppet festival, please take that opportunity because you won't forget it.
Oh, sure. Oh, here she is.
Little bits of the practices that we do, not very good.
But what's that simulating in the body?
You know how if you're like a martial artist, I guess, if you're like doing this, but with your hand, go like that. So this is...
So you're gonna practice that every day back in California?
Oh yeah, Arizona. Every day religiously, I'm sure.
Okay.
And also to stretch your fingers so that they can do...
What more can I say? We ordered the weather. We did okay. Most of the beds were at the right height. The food was, yeah, okay. The best thing of all for me was putting names and faces together. You are great people. Thank you.
For Chris and Stephen Carter and the entire
Chris and Stephen Carter are wonderful puppeteers who really have a real feeling for puppetry and for the intricacies of puppetry, and I think that when they selected their shows for this festival, they selected shows that they were sort of connected to, and I think that made for a great festival.
Welcome to the world of the Huber Marionettes.
Is a 5-inch high little guy who lives in a gray world. He's very lazy, he never goes out, till finally his chick gets fed up with him and runs away. I found the story in a German children's book, but it's a long time ago. I read the story to my children, and I took the basic idea of it and then fleshed it out with my own ideas.
At the first festival, I think practically every show was a marionette show. Marjorie Batchelder did a rod puppet show.
Yo, Mama-san!
The thing that keeps amazing me when I come to these festivals, and this is true when I go to the Henson Festival in New York too, is that so much that people are showing today and calling puppet shows are really not puppet shows. They are mimes. They're delightful shows, but I come from an era where we worked puppets with strings. We worked puppets on our hands. We even worked puppets on our feet, but they were puppets.
People are so very passionate. They want to absorb every little bit of information they can. And it's not just the workshops, it's the class, it's the sitting around talking to people, which certainly has happened an awful lot at this festival, and the hanging around backstage, climbing back, taking photographs of the puppets, taking photographs of the stage, absorbing as much as they can. And I don't know whether people really are conscious of how much they are absorbing at the time, but it is a wonderful quest for information that continues on, because this is the only place where you can share these things with everybody.
I'm a great believer in each festival having its own character, and this one was supremely successful on that level. We had some wonderful things from foreign lands as well as our own in Canada. Now, I'm exhausted because I've been up here a week before setting up an exhibit in the little town of Everett. Some years ago, when the doors weren't open between mainland China and the United States, we made do with Taiwan, but they didn't have a strong shadow tradition. Theirs is more of a primitive folk style, and I have examples of that. But the Peking style, for instance, is very refined. And it's amazing, though, because a lot of that almost didn't make it through the Cultural Revolution. There were extreme excesses there. So I'm pleased to see that it's still there. And it's curious that we'd have two really fine Chinese puppeteers, one with marionettes and one with the hand puppets, who were really successful here. And one of them more or less lives here now. So I think for us that's enriching our puppet tradition. Same way the Guignol did with the French immigrants and Punch with the English, and the Greek Shadows appeared in Chicago and Detroit. So because the controls are different and every time you get a variation, it's intriguing. That's part of the fun for me in my puppet collection, seeing all the different ways that you put strings on a control.
The man from Norway that came to me was also doing puppetry in the schools there, he said, from kindergarten through 6th grade. And he said he also did it in some nursing homes. So we were comparing notes, and all of a sudden he stopped and he said, "Do you mind if I ask how old you are?" And I said, "No, I don't mind a bit. I'm 90. And he says, "What?" He says, "Do you mind if I take your picture and take it back to Norway? I want to show the people there's 90-year-olds that can be active."
Something that we didn't have was access to China in this century when we were doing that work. China has gone through a lot of societal upheavals this century, and although we had images of their puppets, we really didn't know how they worked. We were guessing. With Yang Feng coming here back in the 80s, and now Zhang Zihua, who is working with us at the University of Connecticut, a rod puppeteer, the influence is happening. There's a level of skill attainment that is starting to take place, and I know very specifically with my students, Hua is teaching them an element of grace and beauty that really doesn't exist in American puppetry. As I've observed Mr. Huang, he is very similar to other people that I've come to know, Margot Rose and Albrecht Roser, that the people that we refer to as the master is actually the student, the person who's always learning.
Yeah, sure.
I hope we all can take a lesson from that.
What I often think is that it is the puppet world is a funny world to come into. It gives your life more poetry and smile behind what you see.
I spent as much time as I could packing it in. Went to as many workshops as I could. Between workshops, I tried to connect with people, make new acquaintances, exchange business cards, find out what people were into, that sort of thing. So it was really a working vacation for me, in every sense of the word.
They were able to go back and forth and go down to eat by themselves, and they were in their own workshop, and they really enjoyed it. And then staying up late at night is always fun, right?
You never know who's teaching the workshop. I mean, I didn't know the people, so I wasn't sure how it would work out, and I figured if it didn't work out, one of us, either my husband or myself, would then have to take time out from the workshops to be with the kids, So it was wonderful we didn't have to do that, and the kids came away feeling so good.
You always go home with more. Always.
The goal of a performance with puppets, as I think is the goal of any theater performance, is to create a world, and that the world doesn't stop in the body of the puppet. That as manipulators, we work through the puppet into the world that the puppet's in. So what we're really doing is we're using the puppet to create the world outside the puppet, so that the line is sort of from our breath through our hands, through the puppet and out into the environment, and that neither our hands nor the puppet is the key player.